Most fitness plans are not actually purpose built for high performers. They've got a lot of redundancy. They have you spending too much time in the gym. They also assume 100% compliance, like you're going to be perfect on the plan. Really, most fitness plans are built for people who make lifting their hobby, who are all already interested in being personal trainers themselves. They'll enjoy counting calories, enjoy training 90 minutes every session, 5 days a week. Most training plans are not purpose built for people who have a lot of stuff going on in their lives, particularly people who are, high performing, maybe have a busy career or own a business, travel quite frequently for their work, managing a family, managing multiple projects. It's not going to be very realistic to get a plan where you're told to eat these certain meals and get to the gym 4 or 5 times per week. All right. Most fitness plans are honestly built for college students or people in their early 20s. It's just not going to be realistic to stick to that when you've got so many other things going on in your life. There was a client of mine who came on recently, for example. His name, actually, I won't give his name. But basically, I'm all about client confidentiality. But anyway, he said to me that in his previous program that he had been on, right? Like, this is a guy now who owns his own business. He's been 7 years in running his own Web3 agency, creating websites for people. He also does outsourcing, outstaffing for other companies. He's a very busy guy. He's doing his own sales, his own marketing. He's, doing all his own client work. He's a solopreneur, right? Much like myself. And it was really interesting to see that his previous coach had him on a program that was 5 times a week in the gym, at least 90-minute sessions, if not 2 hours. Every single meal was meant to be prepped out to the max. And, it was all about optimizing different supplements, different, complicated movement patterns. Just basically turning this into a part-time job on top of everything else that he had going on, which to me is nuts, right? Like, my former career was as an operations manager in the tech industry. I'm all about implementation, right? And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my former manager, who happens to be like my first ever mentor, where he recognized that, okay, I definitely have an eye for creating process, for thinking in the big picture and kind of managing people, telling other people what to do, right? But he early on had instilled in me, like, he saw my love for process and he was like, you have to remember, Michael, it's always people over process. People are the ones who drive everything, and without them, your process doesn't matter a damn, right? It was very formative for me, and it was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. So it's really perplexing to me when I see many coaches treat their clients as if they're robots, right? There's no thought about the fact that they have lives outside the gym, that fitness is really just one of the many things they want to have nailed in their lives, whereas it's this huge passion project for coaches. Right? We eat, sleep, and breathe it. I probably eat, sleep, and breathe it a little bit less than most coaches. I mean, I'm in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, probably 4 most weeks, sometimes 3, I try to practice what I preach. And what I preach is basically a 70% compliance model. In and around, right? Some weeks it's going to be 90, some weeks it's going to be 50, okay? I actually think that that's more realistic for most people, and it's okay to accept that you're going to fall short of your ideals, okay? Think about it in any project you've ever been a part of, any business you've launched, right? Any marketing campaign you might have dreamt up, right? Like, you always fall short of the ideal that you're aiming for. Sometimes you exceed it, which, is rare. And then when you try and repeat exceeding it, it rarely ever works, right? Whereas usually the rule is that you're going to fall short of the ideal, And, you know, by definition, that's what makes it an ideal in the first place, right? So what I like to do with my clients is, let's imagine we dream up, like, on one hand, the ideal scenario of them absolutely killing it. They're ripped to death. They're in that marketing promo, just hitting the battle ropes. You know, there's box jumps going everywhere. They're performing at the highest level possible, right? And I'll say to them, okay, performing at that highest level possible, like athlete terms we're talking here, right? I can see how high performers would be, like, absolutely geared towards, that's what I want, and thinking that that's what they can realistically achieve. But there's a give and take to life. Everything is trade-offs. So if you're going to be absolutely smashing it in your training and in how intense you are, it's not going to be very realistic to think that you're going to have that same level of intensity in the tank for your work, for your family, for your relationships, for your social life. You know, you really have to budget out all this intensity, this presence, this attention that you give everything you do in your life. So what I like to do with my clients is to get them realizing how, if you have a less is more approach when it comes to your training, to your nutrition, to everything that you do in the self-improvement context. But if you are consistent on the less is more for a long enough time frame, then everything compounds, right? You actually get to see the return on your investment, as opposed to if you come out all guns blazing in the first few weeks, expecting to move mountains within 90 days or whatever your program is, and then you completely fall off the wagon and you give up on training for the next 3 months, because in your mind, you associate training with having to be perfect 5 days of the week in the gym, meal prepping every single thing that goes into your mouth, and then for some reason having to track it as well, even though you're already meal prepping, right? Like, that's the coaching experience that most people get, because I'll just call a spade a spade. It's lazy coaching. It's, okay, this is ideally what I'd like to stick to. I'm making that the doctrine, the 10 commandments. Fucking force fit yourself into that. Square peg, round hole, pay me money, job done, right? That was fine, I think, in the early days of online coaching, early days of the internet, early days of influencers, all that kind of stuff. It was just basically this celebration of narcissism, right? You know, really ripped body, probably great genetics, might be taking gear, who knows? You can never really can tell. Well, some people you definitely can, like Liver King or something like that. But, you know, if you have to question it, you know, I'm not willing to say that everyone's on gear. I'm not that salty. But anyway, you know, it was basically just a resource extraction. It was like watching Animal Kingdom, where some ripped guy just basically puts up pictures of himself, and it's like it's like coaching clients where actually it's more like a fan club. Just a paid fan club. It's like a silent version of OnlyFans, where you had these people who say, right, I want that person's body. They send them money, they get a dog shit program, and then wonder why it doesn't work for them. And then they just assume that maybe the problem was with them, that they couldn't live up to the discipline, they didn't have the willpower, and that somehow they were broken for not being able to live up to the plan that's given by this guy who just looks at a set of weights and gets ripped, right? And it has all the time in the world to do so, by the way. But that's not the reality for, like, anyone who's not in the 0.001%, right? Now, you can get great results. You can be lean, you can definitely have an athletic looking physique. You can get into somewhere in the region of 10 up to 15% body fat and kind of hover around there, maybe 16% some of the time in the winter. Like, you can hover around that quite comfortably, depending on your genetics, right? Some people will actually even look great at 18%, especially if they're a bit bigger, and it'll be more realistic for their lifestyle. But you can have a very healthy body fat percentage. You can look very well. You can train at a pace that's not absolutely killing yourself. And as long as you're doing it consistently, right? Like, there's no reason why you can't work your vices in there. You know, if you have a few glasses of wine every now and then, why you can't maintain this when you go on trips away, because, a 30-minute at-home circuit of, 3 rounds of 6 different exercises done back to back is going to be a whole lot better than doing nothing, right? That's the kind of mentality you need. Not that, okay, it all goes out the window if I can't train like fucking Mike O'Hearn. Not sure if you're familiar with who he is, but that's the kind of mentality that you need to get out of thinking about, right? Like, because you have to remember the whole fitness industry, in terms of what you're seeing in the marketing on social media, like the way people train versus what they film themselves doing is a whole pile different. Like, I'll see some of the most ripped looking, Adonis looking guys in the gym that I train in, and they're not lifting the weight that I'm lifting. Like, some of them for real, like they're lifting half the weight I'm lifting. I'm half their size. Some people are just, blessed that way. And then they make for great models when it comes to Instagram content, when it comes to, even being hired as personal trainers. But just don't fall into that trap of paying somebody who is living a completely different lifestyle to you for coaching. And then they give you something that is, again, as I said, square peg into a round hole. So instead of just identifying the problems, right, let me give you some like practical tips that I've got written down here. So I'm going to read them out. This is the way I'm structuring my training for me this summer. And it's also the way I'm structuring my training for a lot of my clients who are very busy people, right? We're going to aim for 3 45-minute sessions per week, right? That's on a average good week where we're at home, we're in stable conditions. That's what we're going to aim for, okay? In those 45-minute sessions, we're going to go for 2 very heavy top sets, right? Where we're going close to failure, they're about at 4 to 6 rep range, right? So only lifting 4 to 6 reps. We're going to rest 2 minutes between each set. So that's 6 sets in total. Sorry, no, that's 4 sets in total. Between 2 exercises, 2 top sets, right? Then we're going to do 6 more exercises, but that's going to be broken up into 3 supersets where you've got a 90-second rest between each superset. So 6 exercises, 3 supersets, and then you're doing 2 sets of each superset, right? So 2 by 3 gives you 6. We're going to rest 90 seconds between each superset, as I mentioned, and in between moving into the different supersets. And on those supersetted exercises, we're going to train at the 12 to 20 rep range because that's going to be a great way of us getting in as much volume as possible at like that top end of the kind of hypertrophy rep range. Okay, we're aiming on those exercises for very slow negatives with a good weighted stretch, and then fairly slow, consistent positives as well. We're not actually looking for a lot of explosive force here, whereas we are on the exercises that we're doing the 4 to 6 rep range, right? Like, let's imagine on the heavy ones, on the squats or bench press, we're going to do like a kind of a stretch reflex, catapult kind of thing out of the bottom. We're going to be nice and explosive with our breathing. That's going to be like really focused, intense, present, heavy sets at the beginning, and then it's going to be more relaxed, more time efficient, volume intensive on those supersetted exercises. So then this can also, right, be substituted. Like, let's imagine you split that, right? So your 3 sessions are split in a push-pull style routine, right? So this is what I do with my clients. They're on their push day, they're doing pecs, triceps, quads, glutes. On their pull day, they're doing their back, biceps, hamstrings, and their shoulders. I know that shoulder pressing would technically be a push movement, but I never... I like to break that rule between the whole push-pull thing, just because it doesn't make much sense to me if I'm like bench pressing and then shoulder pressing in the same session, for example. It's a lot of crossover fatigue, and you're not going to get the best out of each exercise, right? So I don't break this into push-pull legs. I find push-pull legs to be a very inefficient split. Despite all the hype, I prefer to just put it into push-pull. That also helps with adherence to leg training because we're never doing one big leg training session, which I hate, and I don't expect my clients to do anything I wouldn't do myself. We can then further condense this on busy weeks or trips away where we can substitute those push sessions for at-home body weight only training that will take 30 minutes. So that's our 3 circuits of 6 different exercises where we're alternating between push-ups, air squats, decline push-ups, forward lunges in one position, so alternating forward lunges. What else can we do? We could do bench dips against like a couch or a chair. And then to finish it off with the legs again, we could do something like Bulgarian split squats without any weight, where we have a leg elevated on a chair, on a bench or something like that. And then even if we wanted to, if you were on the road and you were somewhere like Barcelona and you were going down to Barceloneta Beach where they have a nice street gym, we can substitute the pull session for the same thing again. We could do circuits down at that street gym, or we could just do normal sets, doing things like pull-ups, Aussie pull-ups, chin-ups. We could do, if we had some bands with us, so I get my clients to buy just 1 or 2 resistance bands, we could use those to do banded lateral raises while we're down there, banded bicep curls, and we could even do banded pull-throughs for the hamstrings to kind of replicate a reverse RDL style motion. So that's basically how we would condense your training down to taking under 2 hours per week, right? And that's going to be actually realistic to stick to if you are a high performer. And then also with nutrition, I've moved all my clients away from tracking apps and away from meal plans into using AI. So any GPT of your choice will do, where basically we set it up with your custom macronutrient goals. I input about 150 different quick, high protein, high fiber recipes. And then what I get my clients to do is to use those quick recipes, right, to get even ChatGPT prompting them, so it's a two-way street where they're looking for ideas. Like if they wake up and they say, right, I'm going to go out for dinner tonight. I have 2,000 calories in total. I want to keep 1,000 aside because I'm meeting up with a client and I want to have a glass of wine. I want to come off as charismatic, in control of the situation. I don't want to be in my head, analytical, anxious, thinking about calories, right? We're going to keep 1,000 aside. We'll get the AI to even give us suggestions of what to eat on the menu. And then we're going to do things like, for the rest of the day, we'll get ChatGPT to prompt us back some quick recipes from the recipes we've already uploaded that will help us hit 100 grams of protein within the first 50% of our calories at the beginning of the day, right? So then, like within 5 minutes per day of just prompting AI with voice, 5 minutes max, by the way, we can very quickly have hit our protein numbers, our calorie numbers. We're doing our 3 days a week in the gym, which is also not stopping even if we're on the road, if we're traveling or a busy week, etc. And yeah, like if you stick with those kind of habits, fat loss is going to be inevitable. And you're building an ecosystem of very quick, sustainable habits that will basically just ensure that you lose body fat and that you keep it off for the rest of your life. This is a bottom-up implementation style of fitness coaching. This is what I do with my clients on the flexible fat loss protocol, where we take their existing lifestyle, we couple that with the lifestyle that they actually want to live, right? So we've got their lifestyle now, an aspirational lifestyle, and then we layer on the flexible fat loss framework. Okay, there's 5 simple principles there, which will be described in another video, but essentially it creates that ecosystem of habits whereby fat loss is inevitable, and keeping the fat loss result is also an inevitability in the long term. All right, that's it for this video. Check out the description. I've got a link there into my mailing list for daily fat loss tips. At some point as well, there'll be a link here as well to my website, which is just doing a little bit of a renovation at the moment. You can check me out on Instagram at Mixer Linehan. and get in touch with me there if you'd like to find out more about my coaching programs. All right, look after yourself. Have a calm yet focused and productive rest of your week. And I guess you'll see me soon on here again.